Welcome to Comic Station, issue number 76 for June 11, 2014. It is a monsoon out here, but we still came in.
Yeah,
so
we made it despite the
we got our kayaks.
Yeah,
we got our kayaks out and still paddled in. So why don't you give us a start
Let's
off?
start things off with the new book from DC Comics, Forever People #1.
That is such a generic title. What is it? I know it's been out before, but what is it?
Forever People is about a group of teenage heroes from... Oh man, I should record that. Forever People is about a group of teenage heroes from... Yeah, we'll do it live. From Jack Kirby's New Gods universe. The original book was by Kirby himself as part of the larger stable at the time. This new one comes to us from Keith Geffen and Dan Didio, the same people who put together the OMAC comic from the early days of the New 52, which garnished a lot of goodwill, but still didn't end up making it. By comparison, this isn't as good. It's a bit more shallow and diffuse, with less one-and-done storytelling and more of a broader arc, which makes the individual issues feel a little bit more empty. Also, the team dynamic is certainly lacking, especially for someone like Geffen, who created great groups like the Justice League International or Lost Generation.
Oh, okay. New readers friendly or not?
It's new reader friendly. There's nothing in here that hinges too heavily on the previous stuff, and what is in there, there's some narration that fills you in on the New Gods and their mission.
Okay, fair enough. Next one we have is Red City from Image Comics, and this one really tried to evoke more of the genre for the gritty crime novels, like television shows, the gritty voiceover.
Sin City-ish?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It tried to do that while at the same time trying to have its cake and eat it too, having a smart aleck lead character that you're really supposed to love the fact that you hate him and that everyone else hates him.
Charming rogue, if you will.
Very much,
Yeah.
and it just kind of failed on both ends. While not bad, it never quite reaches to the level that they're really trying to push it. If they had maybe focused a little bit more on the gritty crime, it might have actually been a little bit better. The artwork is a mixture between darker colors but a lighter atmosphere. So
is there anything else to it beyond just the city drama of it? Is it like...
actually, the universe building I actually thought was really interesting because I'm more of a... I like politics, I like some of the futuristic, some of the fantasy novels that I read, sci-fi novels. And in this one, this is the far future. Basically, the entire human civilization is under one government, and it's really now at the point where the planets are the states. So Mars is a state, Earth is a state, so forth. And then there was a little bit of a succession with two planets that decided to succeed from the Union, and that's caused. And the main character fought on one side of the war. And Mars is kind of a hub of a bunch of different people, and of course, as usual, and they kind of ram this down your throat. Pretty much everyone's corrupt. Yeah. Pretty much.
In Mars Eisley Space Station, there's never been a greater hub of slime and villainy.
Especially here. It's just nobody, even the main character, he was a police officer. At the same time, he ran a side business. Yeah. And so they try to use that to create a little intrigue, which does work a little bit, but at the same time, you get this whole idea that he's just going around, okay, pass a little bribe here, go there, so forth.
I understand.
But I do like the world building where the planets, and then there's a little political intrigue. One of the ambassador's daughter is missing, and he has to find her, and you don't know, and there's a little setting up. It really ends on attempting to leave it on a cliffhanger where you don't know if he's been double-crossed or who's been setting him up.
I understand. Back now to the big names we've got from Marvel, Uncanny X-Men Special, No End in Sight. I'm assuming this describes the X-Men comics in general. It's okay. Despite featuring mainly Cyclops and his group of X-Men, it's surprisingly humorous and jokey. Cyclops himself isn't really much of a main character, and this focuses on the people under his tutelage, who are all, because they're basically the new mutants, they're all very jokey, very juvenile, very teen in that respect. The biggest flaws of the story are that the antagonists are incredibly poorly defined. You don't really know what their motivations or even who they are in a big way, so as a result, they feel kind of shallow and like they just exist to drive the story towards more crossovers. They're actually...
Yeah, that's X-Men, though. It's a crossover.
Admittedly, yeah. Specifically, crossovers you're going to see probably the Avengers at some point in this, as the villains actually wanted Cyclops' brother Havoc, and you can tell as soon as that comes up, it's like, oh, so we can have Thor involved and such.
Of course.
Iron Man shows up in probably the best part of the book, where he just walks in as a small cameo, and then he teams up with the heroes because he doesn't know they're bad guys. It's honestly the best part because it feels so naturalistic and plays to the more comedic strengths. If this was done as a straight comedy-style event, I actually think it'd be a lot better. Also, Nova isn't in the comic at all, so a third of the cover is lying to you.
Ah, well, yeah, that's nothing new.
Yeah.
And they all try to have the little evoking of the cross, and then
Yeah, they'll have the cross
magic is
there.
just kind of like, screw you. And, oh well, it's X-Men.
It is X-Men.
It's a 1 of 3, so it's a short. I like the short runs.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how it is. The next one I have is The Empty Man from Boom Comics, and this one is a horror mystery.
A little bit disaster in there on the sides.
We're not quite sure. They never actually name what it is, but essentially something, whether it be a demon, a virus, just mental issues going around. People are dying off, and they're killing themselves in gruesome, disgusting ways.
The big twist is that the plant's killing us.
Yes!
Happening joke.
Basically, that's nothing new really in this genre. It's something's going on. They don't know what it is. You have 2 cops who are investigating that have been joined together from different organizations to help combat this. Of course, nobody knows what it is, so they're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. They're quarantining them, even though nobody actually can tell if it's actually able to spread by the air. There's all this misinformation going around. There's this little string going through the story where the mother is shown in the beginning talking to a preacher. Later, the preacher is on the television show. So there may be some connection between that, but you don't know what's causing it, who's doing it. And at the end, really, it came off a little flat, except for I did like the ending where it, and I don't want to ruin anything, no spoilers, but if you like horror, it does leave off on a good ending where it basically says the worst thing about any virus is that some of them mutate.
It sounds a lot like it's got a lot of great concepts and ideas, but maybe not the best execution of those ideas.
Very much, and it just never... And for a horror, it was more gruesome than a horror.
I understand.
To me. Anyways, but it is a #1. It's from Boom Studios. And Colin Bunn wrote it, so it's... Del Rey did the artwork, so it has a lot of good potential in it. The storyline has a lot of potential. As a #1, it probably set it up. I am kind of hoping that this is a 6 to a dozen run.
For the trade.
Yeah, make it a trade book, maybe 2 trades. But don't go much further than that, at least not from what I've seen so far. But if they can keep it tight, they can keep it focused, and continue on with what they're setting up here, I think it'll be good.
Nice. From that to probably the worst book I've read for this one this week, we've got from Marvel, Original Sins, #1 of 5. Or as I call it, Original Disposable. There's nothing in here that you won't get from existing tie-in stuff.
And don't confuse it with Original Sin, because they're probably counting on that.
There are 2 different things here. This is Original Sins. It tells 2 different stories from characters who are vaguely affected by the Original Sin arc. The first one is a brief story about Deathlock, which tells you nothing about this new iteration except that he's modeled more after the TV version we've seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the second one follows the Young Avengers, in something that you'll probably see in their own tie-in book. You don't need to buy this one to get any new information. Just wait for Deathlock 1 and Young Avengers, whatever it is that ties into Original Sin. The only good thing I can say about this is that there's a 2-page story in the back with Lockjaw.
There you go.
Yeah.
Lockjaw.
So if you want to spend, like $4 on a 2-page Lockjaw story, this is the book for you.
I know I do.
Yeah, it's true.
Alright. And finally, we're going to end up actually with Valiant Armor Hunters #1. And surprisingly, I actually have not been keeping up with this series, although I do know quite a number of people that enjoy it.
Yeah.
And while at the same time I haven't been reading up with it, it is fairly okay to jump into as a new reader. I was able to get into it and read and understand it, although I really do feel like this is a good jumping on point, but at the same time I do feel like if I do start reading this one, I'm eventually at some point going to want to go back and read the original series.
I understand.
And find out. And of course, with Valiant, this is a great book as far as showcasing Valiant's strength with some of their sneak peeks that they put at the end, shorts, on some of the other volumes, was Bloodshot and Harbinger. They have little sneak peeks in there, and it really showed how well the world building is on this, because in Bloodshot it was a little more subtle, but they do mention an event that happens, as well as in Harbinger it takes place at a large event that happens in Armor Hunter. So the world feels like one place.
And a lot of people could stand to take some lessons from that, like
Oh, a
Dark
lot of
Horse,
people.
for instance.
A lot of people could take some lessons. Probably one of the better world building companies.
Nice.
Overall story, since I realized I jumped
Yeah,
right into
jump
what
right
I
into
liked
that
about
one.
it. Armor Hunter, basically the guy, this guy gets this armor, really powerful. He does end up reclaiming it. So you see another guy that used to wear it,
Mhm.
and he's not in great shape. So you get the idea that armor is sentient. In some way or manner, it makes him stronger, but it also is a threat.
Might be less of an Iron Man suit, more of a symbiote.
Yes, it's a symbiote Iron Man.
Yeah.
And basically the antagonists, the villains in this
Mhm.
are, they never identify themselves, but you get the idea that they're basically there. They're trying to get the armor from them, saying that, hey, this is a threat.
Mhm.
It's destroyed many other planets. We're trying to save you from yourselves. And of course, it's America. So the Colonel is just basically like,
No one saves us from our freedoms.
and she was like, "This, I don't know where you're from, but this is America. You don't take our weapons."
Oh.
So that's an actual line.
Yeah, at first I thought I was mocking the book.
No, that's an actual line. Thank you, America.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny, but they do a catalytic. It's just basically like, hey, this is our power. If you don't give it to us, we're gonna take it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they tie in the world on. And
Gotcha.
you know, it's a good jumping on point.
Mhm.
This is a good opportunity to jump into it.
So I take it you liked Armor Hunter's Original Sin better than Marvel Original Sins.
Yeah, you can really tie those two together.
Yeah.
So some good titles, some bad titles this week, but that's par for the course here.
Pretty much.
And strangely enough, some of the smaller titles were actually better.
Yeah, I definitely thought that of the things I've read this week, none of these big name titles really stuck out to me as that great.
Yeah, and Empty Man probably stands out to me as having a large amount of potential, and Armor Hunter showed its continued potential.
If you want to see some other reviews, I have 2 already up online with some more coming later this week of some other smaller titles.
Yep, and those are all up on fronttowardsgamer.com. Look forward to those, and also Philadelphia Comic Con is not this weekend, next weekend, so we'll be having coverage come out about that a little bit here and there over the next 2 weeks or so. Alright, thank you, and this has been Comic Station issue number 76, June 11, 2014, and we will see you next week. Stay dry.